Yo, what up, what up, what up, what up? Welcome to episode 68, 69. One of those, it's 60 something, 68 or 69 of my premium podcast, The Verdict Podcast. I'm your host, Splash Jordan. Joined with me today, who do we got?
Of course, the lovely Noah.
Unplanned vacay last week, but I'll take them.
Yeah,
I'll take them. I know some would say that, you want to maintain that consistency. And under most circumstances, I hate to miss an episode. However, I felt like I could miss that episode. We've been going pretty hard lately.
True.
And we got a lot to do coming up. So I wasn't upset that we took a break. I was debating on what update I should give them. The live show, as you saw from what I was telling you, is done. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we're going to promo it, like we're going to promo the fuck out of it. We're going to, explain what's going on. Mm-hmm. And, I want to do that in layers, because there's a long time between now and then, right? Mm-hmm. So I want, I don't want to give everybody too much information right up front. What I will say, the first detail that I'm willing to expose about our upcoming live variety show, A Sight to See, Take Two, is that I will be doing a live segment from multiple podcasts. For multiple podcasts that I host, I'll do a live abbreviated segment and kind of feature different sides of, my podcast personality, my on-mic presence, just overall me. I've been trying to kind of escape being in the limelight or being in the front. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem like I'll be able to do that fully. Right. So I have to get more and more comfortable with being on stage, which I am. I'm very comfortable. I'm probably more comfortable on a stage than off a stage at this point. Talking in front of people is very easy. It's very natural to me. Not that I don't get nervous, but it's still very easy and natural, right? That's your first live show update, is that I'm going to be doing a segment for multiple podcasts, and there are some surprise guests. So you'll want to, tune in for that. You'll definitely want to be in the building, all right? So A Sight to See, Take Two, Living Arts Collective, Durham, North Carolina, September 16th, 2019. If you are a fan of podcasts, if you are a fan of this podcast, definitely make sure you're in the building. Come check it out and see a live episode of multiple podcasts in the same evening, all right? So, moving on. What else happened? What's going on with you? I know you had told me something about a web series.
Yeah, I was supposed to get started with that, but my schedule, I've got to work on my time management. It's just too much on my plate right now.
It's a lot.
It is.
A lot of people are trying to do a lot of things, and I know that bills get in the way. You have to make sure that things are taken care of.
Exactly. So being swamped with that and learning that time management, it's still an opportunity that's on the table. It's just being able to dedicate time to it and, really be down for it, not wanting to go into it and then incomplete it.
Right. If you weren't aware, I did an interview on Most Wanted Radio. I was a featured guest. They slid me in there, towards the end, but it was pretty cool. That was my first time meeting Jack in person, but Quan and I have a relationship, right? So we'll probably be doing some business together in the future. Check those guys out. Most Wanted Radio on Instagram, Most Wanted Radio on Twitter, Most Wanted Radio on SoundCloud. That's where you can go and hear my interview featuring. There was a bunch of other guys in there at first, but if you click on the Splash Jordan interview, go to the last 30 minutes, boom. It's like the last 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah,
so
sure to go check that out.
Right. It's weird when you're an A-mic and people invite you for an interview because if ever I feel like the conversation's not going how I want, or if there's dead air or something, right, it's like I automatically just kind of take over the conversation. Right. Which, depending on who you're talking to, they don't like that. Right.
Shut the hell up.
Right.
The hell?
So for sure, go check out Most Wanted Radio. Let's get this energy up. I feel like I'm dragging a little bit.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I feel like I'm dragging a little bit. So, let's talk about some lit shit.
Oh my goodness.
Some lit ass shit. And that's that I got a new Bingo and Chill location, all right? So I'll be taking over Monday nights from now on, especially if you're in the North Raleigh area. Come see me at Paris Lounge, 5500 Atlantic Springs Boulevard. That's in Raleigh, North Carolina. Come see me every Monday night free drinks, free food, free prizes, bingo and chill. You know, it's an experience, you know.
Free food too?
Right. You know, within reason.
Shabby.
Yeah, within reason, you know, but for sure come out there. It's going to be a little bit different than my other locations. You know, so this one's a little bit more grown and sexy. It's a lounge, it's a vibe. Come here and catch a vibe. My other spots, it's more like, you know, just come here and hang out and have fun. This place is more like come here and catch a vibe.
It sounds lit as fuck though.
It sure is. Every Monday night. That's starting June 10th, right? So if you're hearing my voice, if you're living within driving distance of my voice, then for sure, turn up.
Pull up.
Turn up. Oh, and I'm giving away $50 the first week. It's going to start June 10th, right? Mm-hmm. So June 10th, June 17th, I'm doing $50 cash prizes for, you know, our soft opening and then our grand opening the week prior, right? So for sure, pull up. All right, so let's get into these things that I observed this week, right? Mm-hmm. So are you familiar at all with, I mean, I don't think that you would be, but American Taliban is kind of, you know, his handle, his name as he's being, you know, talked about in the news. But anyway, some of the American supporters, a few of them, one in particular who was dubbed American Taliban, he was released from prison recently. So he's basically like, you know, a Osama bin Laden supporter / ISIS extremist. You know, he gets down like that, but he's an American. Mm-hmm. So it kind of created this, because a lot of those people are now exiting their prison sentence. You know, they're 20, especially if you had some involvement with September 11th.
Right.
A lot of those guys, 15 years, 25 years, they're getting out for, you know, whatever the case may be. So there's a small community of people who that applies to, you know, domestic terrorists that are still alive, serve their prison, you know, sentence, and they're still living in America. Mm-hmm. I kind of thought that was weird, though.
Yeah, wouldn't they have been deported?
Yeah, like,
no, like what happened?
Well, where would you go? Where would you deport them? You know, if they're a U.S. citizen, where could you deport them? But at the end of the day, I'm just like, yo.
Big facts, though.
If I'm living with somebody who tried to kill me, tried to steal from me, I don't want to see. No, you got to get the fuck away from me forever. I don't care where you go, but you can't hang out here.
Right.
You got to leave. Like, you know, shouldn't there be a place where we can take these people and it's just like, you know, you go here now. But
then that's like inhumane because of everybody having rights, right? Right. So that's where you stand.
Right. So I wasn't alone in that stance. You know, a lot of people, especially people who lost loved ones in that tragedy, are just like, you know, I don't want him walking around. I don't want him having no type of freedoms or no type of damn. It gets hot in here when that fan is off. So I thought that was interesting. That's something that I'm going to follow because I saw reports that, you know, he wasn't done with the shits. You know, he had made statements while in prison
that he's going to come right back and do some more shit.
Well, not that, but that he supported, you know, current terrorist organizations. So
that is so ignorant.
Right. So that's something that we're going to monitor, albeit briefly, you know, as time goes on. But it's shocking to see how this country is treating white terrorists. You know, basically you got whatever treatment you got in prison, but now, you know, you're allowed. I don't know. It just feels like, you know, you could probably be doing more time for having some weed on you or for possession of cocaine. Or
very true.
You know, you can definitely go to jail for, you know, I watch, you know, investigative discovery all the time. People going to jail for 30 years for quote unquote check forgery. Like I was watching a show and a woman was saying how she found a house on Craigslist, went through the application process, paid a deposit, provided all the stuff, moved in, was hanging out at home, and the sheriff showed up banging on the door and was like, you know, how did you get in here? You broke in here. You burglarized the home. Sent the woman to jail for 30 years. Now, she had no priors, no criminal record. She basically like, you know, I bought the house from X and X from so-and-so, or not bought the house, but I'm renting the house. However, that person, while they did exist, the person who had introduced, like, you know, had said, hey, this is me. That wasn't who they were. That was a real person, yes, but when they went and contacted her, she was like, I've never met this woman.
Right.
But she couldn't get in touch with the person who actually helped her get into the house. So they was like, go to jail 30 years. So, it's a fucked up system that we live in. So I'm monitoring the situation closely. And by closely, I mean, I'm Googling, his name, every 30 days to kind of just see what's going on, right? One video, and this was kind of one of the things that kind of had me turned up last week, right? Mm-hmm. So Pamela Turner, are you familiar with the pregnant woman who was shot? She was on the ground. She was unarmed. Mm-mm. So Pamela Turner, and I don't recall where this took place, what city or state it took place in. I feel like I want to say Arizona, but I'm probably super off. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there's a video going around, and it's a very disturbing video. It shows the last few moments of a person's life. Mm-hmm. It was recorded by an onlooker who heard the commotion, immediately went to go record. So Pamela Turner was someone who was, in the wrong place at the wrong time, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. However, she did have a criminal history, and there were warrants out for her arrest. Mm-hmm. An arresting officer was attempting to make that arrest, and she's trying to get away. Seemed like to me like she was under the influence of something, and she's trying to go home.
Mm-hmm. But she was pregnant?
She claimed to be pregnant.
Okay.
Right. So, and while she wasn't doing anything wrong, the arresting officer recognized her because of her history, and he knew that there was a warrant for her arrest out. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that she was breaking laws currently at that moment. Mm-hmm. He attempted to make the arrest. Boom, boom, boom. She resisted. He tased her, but the taser didn't seem to faze her. And so at some point, she got the taser away from him, and it did appear that it looked to me like she had pointed it at him. Mm-hmm. And so he pulled his gun out, and he shot her. And that's, what you see, and that's the uproar. So I'm torn on how to feel because, of course, at first I saw a white police officer shooting a woman whom I thought was pregnant, unarmed, and, in cold blood. But once I dug deeper and I got some more facts, mm-hmm. It was like, can I be upset about this? Is it okay for me to be mad? Like I want to be mad, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that they arrest you if you have a warrant.
Right.
If you have a warrant, you have to avoid the police at all costs, because if they, engage you, they're going to take you to jail.
If they pull your information, it's a go.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know that because you was doing something wrong. You have a warrant, so you already know what time it is. If the police talk to me, they're going to take me to jail. So I'm not necessarily on her side with, resisting.
Right.
Because you already knew what time it was. A struggle ensued, and now he was sloppy because some kind of how she got, and she's sloppy, older woman, but some kind of how she got the taser away from him and looked like she was about to fire him off. What tripped me out though was that, okay, did you feel threatened by the taser? Because you just hit me with the taser. You know what I'm saying? Like if you feel like this is something that threatens you, why are you allowed to hit me with it?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you scared of this dog? Like, because you just hit me with it.
But see, that's a part of their training, though. So you already know what the taser feels like. You have to go through everything that you're going to do to somebody else. It's just like military.
The tear gas,
so
all that.
So at the end of the day, you know what it's like. But you also know the voltages, they hold for longer than what they get held for.
Right. And, you're dealing with someone who's, going to hold that trigger down. Or,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with someone who wants to do you harm. But it's like, okay, but now you see how it feels. When you have someone who has a weapon and they want to do you harm, it's like, okay, fight or flight.
Exactly.
So anyway, there's a lot of people who want black people to uproar. But I don't know if I can uproar because it's like, you was in the wrong. And, you was someplace and you got caught slipping.
Right.
Did you deserve to die? Of course not. So, but I can't, I'm not ready to get the pitchforks and the hounds and, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not ready to do all that. So is that how, are you kind of on, are you there as well? Or how do you feel about these videos that keep getting posted showing the last moments of a person's life?
I mean, number one, I think people need to have more humility than what they have out here. Everything shouldn't be a show. Like, yes, it's documenting what's going on and what's wrong, but it only leaves one perspective from one view. You know what I'm saying? It's always a different perspective and different view because there's always two sides to a story. They're both in the wrong in some way, shape, or form. Like you said, you knew you had a background. You knew you had a warrant. You knew that if you got stopped, that your ass was going to jail. Like, you also know that you're an African American. You also know that in America, we don't need to play games. So at the end of the day, like, why would you resist them? It could have gone down a different way. And I guess I'm to the point right now where I'm not going to feel sorry for a person's decisions. You know what I'm saying? You can either make the right decision or the wrong decision. Like, I can't sit here and, you know, have pitchforks, like you said, running down the street, you know, trying to stand up for somebody based off bad decisions on both parts, the cops and hers. It's nobody's right. They're both sides that have factors that could have been different,
right,
to have made everything different. So it's like, I don't really play that side shit. Like, that's, the cops need to calm down and people need to stop trying to go against them, because at the end of the day, they do still have the upper hand legally, even though it's not right what they're doing. It's abuse of power.
It's definitely abuse of power, which means that they don't have the upper hand legally, but they expect you to respond unintelligently.
Right.
You know, which sometimes voids your legal rights.
Right.
So they play on your ignorance, and, you know, they play on, because they have a job to do, whatever the case may be. So that's another situation where it's almost to a point where I'm becoming desensitized to police shootings, which is something I never thought that I would become desensitized to. But it's like, okay, for one, we can't, you know, gather the whole farm on every single one. While I would like to, sometimes we need to examine the information, collect the facts, you know, and consider the evidence. You know, what's going on here? Is this just an unfortunate situation, or is there malicious intent and, you know, being preyed upon? Like, you know, walking through a neighborhood with some Skittles and a hoodie on is totally different than evading, getting into a shootout, resisting. You know, some things that just warrant more attention than others.
True.
So that's not me victim shaming. It's just saying, you know, sometimes, you know, you just have to, you know, suffer the consequences.
Right.
And, but, you know, I don't expect that anything will happen to the officer.
No. He'll get off.
He'll get off. Of course he'll get off.
Because she resisted. So it gives him, quote unquote, ground.
Right. And she had a weapon and pointed it at him. Although there is a black officer, I forget where he is, but it was a black police officer who was involved in a shooting, and they're like prosecuting him to the fullest extent of the law, which is something I've never seen before. You know, normally the police, you know, just get off and it's, you know, paid administrative leave. This nigga didn't get no paid administrative leave. Go straight to jail. You're a criminal.
Don't pass go.
Don't pass
Do
go.
not collect 200.
Don't hit up none of your buddies. No favors is being called in.
No, get out of jail free card.
We're gonna throw you in the same jail where you put a lot of these people, and, you know, let you kind of fend for yourself. Now, and I've been waiting on this. This has been brewing underneath my skin. Like, you know, this situation almost brought me back to online debating, which I don't know if you engage in online debating.
No. Okay.
If you're listening to me and you engage in online debating, stop engaging in online debating. I promise you. Like, I know that you want to be right and you want to tell other people how wrong they are, but if you let it go, you will feel that much better. If you just, you know, keep scrolling, if you just, you know, keep your opinion to yourself and voice it in a healthy way where you have control, but you cannot give power to trolls and bots. And, you know, I see so many memes posted where it's like somebody will say something wholesome, and then, you know, there's a comment that's like, you know, so fucked up. And, you know, we have this whole dialogue about that so fucked up comment. But if you Google that account, it's like, they have one picture. Like, fam, this isn't even a real person. Why are we giving this person any attention? Like, you know, why are you So
like little puppets.
Right. It's just like, these people are there to generate these dialogues regardless of how toxic they are. And when you're going back and forth with a person and y'all don't agree on a certain ideology, those conversations can get toxic and take over other relationships. That's me speaking from experience. Stop engaging in online debating. I promise you, your life will change forever. So, but every now and then there's just something where it's just like, damn, I want to speak up. So a segment on this show that I don't know if you and I ever did very often, but it wasn't super popular. Victim or Nah, where, we have a complex look at deep dive into certain situations. And I promise we'll fly through this. So, and we decide, we basically pass judgment on, who's the victim in this situation or not. So it's a hard stance on who's the victim and how you feel, right? So Samira Rahim. You ever heard that name before?
No.
You probably seen her before and don't know what her name is. But do you remember right before stuff came through here, we had an episode and it was that girl talking about we're all sluts.
You're a slut. All these dudes behind you are sluts. Your cameraman's a slut.
I think so. Yeah, go ahead.
You remember her? Okay, right. She's taken, her portion of fame, and she's used her platform to speak on various political things, especially rights for LGBTQ. Her famous line,
"My body is not a political playground."
By all accounts, regardless if you agree with her lifestyle or not, she seems to be a person, in my opinion, who is worthy of respect, and is about what they say, that they're about. She even on one occasion printed that line.
"My body is not a political playground."
Put it on a shirt, and she partnered with a couple of various organizations. Based off of her, fame, those shirts sold. She was able to raise a lot of money for various other nonprofit organizations. She herself didn't make a whole lot of money off of it, right? True philanthropist. She's doing other things. She's modeling. She's blah, 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 right? I think that, that's a very unbiased description of that person, right? Actually, no, it's a very good description of that person. So insert, and I hope I'm saying this right, enter Lingua Franca.
They make these beautiful cashmere sweaters. They're a great company. They're committed to fair trade, ethical labor practices, and high environmental standards. All of the sweaters are hand-stitched by local women here in New York City, and they are paid a living wage.
They sell these sweaters that have certain logos on them. Not even logos, but just sayings that you may or may not have seen before. So they have one that says like power to the people. They have one that says like do the right thing. They might not have one that says do the right thing, but they could. They have one that says
"My body is not a political playground."
And so the young woman I showed you, once she became aware of the sweater, what, a phrase that she said, she became very irate, very hurt and disappointed. She got on the Instagram and kind of slammed them, saying that, they were kind of stealing her whatever, stealing her thing, selling it for personal gain. So before I go any further in the story, do you think she has a case? Do you think that she's a victim in this situation?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't.
Okay. All right. Well, to make a long story less long, right? I don't want to ramble. In these situations, like, it's very hard to trademark phrases. Unless, you can prove that, like, without a doubt, if a person says this phrase, they think of your brand. Like,
right.
Like just do it for Nike.
Right.
But it wasn't like that at the beginning. Nike had to say just do it in all of their branding for 40, 50 years before it became synonymous with even toddlers.
Right.
Everybody alive knows now just do it. But at a time, it was just do it and the check together.
Right.
My point is with this is that, and I'll just go ahead and state, my viewpoint, how I'm feeling is that, no, this young lady wasn't a victim. She actually victimized, a business, that has a good reputation that's been tarnished now because of how, you've led, how you've used your platform. misled people into thinking that something. And what I learned by doing some research is that slogan or phrase was already the title of a book. She kind of changed it. She added the word political. So I guess some people felt like now it's something different. To me, it caught me feeling some kind of way because I feel like a lot of times we excuse people who look like us. We, make excuses for them. We make passes for them when in fact people are operating, under normal business practices, not doing anything shady at all. Like, just slapping slow, I mean, you've kind of already said, your piece, you don't think she's a victim. Do you think that the other company, the Lingua Franca or whatever they're called, do you feel like, they've been victimized, or do you think that was kind of, their own fault for trying to, because to me, I could feel how a person could say, oh, like they're gentrifying, certain culture, certain parts of a culture, they're gentrifying these things. But, they do, they do cater to a minority. It's women owned. They pay their women in New York a living wage. They, donate to these charities. They, are affiliated with these organizations. But should they have known, like, well, this is something that we shouldn't have done?
Like you said, trademark or like, what is it, statins or slogans, whatever you want to call it. Like you can't really trademark those unless it's a certain way. So no, you can't just get mad because somebody else somewhat used it or put it out on a platform before you did. So I think that I'm pretty sure they covered themselves legal wise so that they wouldn't get any trouble. You know what I'm saying? Being a bigger company than just somebody who said a slogan. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, she herself is becoming, more than just a person. I mean, she's verified on certain platforms, and I think it just goes back to, as a creative, people appropriate your ideas all the time. That's the way the universe works. A lot of things I know for a fact I thought of first, prior to the people that I know in my circle. However, they eventually start doing it too, or maybe they even, have a similar idea. They're influenced based off of whatever they're influenced. And, it used to make me feel some kind of way, but the more that it happened, I learned like it's supposed to happen. Especially the better you are at it, people will become influenced by you.
Yes. It's the point of being an influencer. Right.
Why else would you do it? It's not to get you to, yes, it is to get you to make a purchase and to spend some money, but at the end of the day, is to make an impact on culture in some kind of way.
Right.
So that was my thing, because she's somebody who has a lot of sympathizers. And there's this, we don't have time for the other tangent I was going to make, but I wanted to revisit that segment, victim or not. And in fact, she was one of the victims. We did a segment, I think, maybe when Rick and I were, when Rick was still through here. So, she has been in that segment before. She may have been one of the last ones. So I've been monitoring the situation. It seems like it's kind of blown over, but I still see like a lot of toxic behavior, which is just kind of like unfair. I just hate when, it's different when people when they're getting what they deserve. But, if a person's out here thinking that they're doing, right by people, to then turn around and be like, these unwritten rules, there's too many unwritten rules. I think that we should also do a new rule, which is that all the rules need to be written down somewhere. Right. Like, you can't expect everybody to go by these same unwritten rules, right? So I'm going to get off that tangent, and if you didn't have anything else, we'll take a short break to hear from our sponsors, and then when we come back, we'll do roll call.
Perfect.
All right, cool. This episode of the Verdict Podcast is brought to you by Impressive, the smoking accessories company. Impressive makes stylish, luxury smoking accessories for the young millennial. These products not only come at a great price, but are only meant to be purchased one time. They have premium mat grinders, electronic lighters, and multifunction vape batteries. Impressive also provides free shipping all over the U.S. Visit smokeimpressive.com and use our code VERDICT to get an additional 10% off when you check out. That's smokeimpressive.com using promo code VERDICT.
Hey everybody, I really do hope you love the Verdict podcast. Did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this podcast? I know it sounds insane, but it's true. We just discovered a free new app called Podcoin, and it literally pays you to listen to podcasts. Here's how it works. You listen to podcasts and you earn Podcoin while you listen. Then you turn the Podcoin in for your gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks. Okay, take two. Hold on. Hey everybody, I really do hope you love... Hey everybody, I really do hope you love the Verdict podcast. Did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this podcast? I know, it sounds insane, but it's true. We just discovered this free new app called Podcoin, and it literally pays you to listen to podcasts. Here's how it works. You listen to podcasts and you earn Podcoin while you listen. Then you turn that Podcoin in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks. And you could even donate that Podcoin to charity. The more you listen, the more you earn. So here's what you do. Download the app right now on your iPhone or Android, and I'll have a special code for you. Simply use our code Verdict Podcast, and you'll get 300 Podcoin just for signing up. And if you listen to enough of us on here, you can get cappuccino at Starbucks or an Amazon gift card on us. So go ahead and go listen to the podcast or virtually any podcast on Podcoin and sign up with our code Verdict Podcast. I swear it'll change the way you listen to podcasts.
Roll call. Here we go. And a lot of people have gone to jail since,
I see.
But I only did, I stuck with a few, like 4 or 5. And there's an update. Like, I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about Mama June or Honey Boo Boo's
Yes.
mom going to jail. So there's like some pictures of her circulating and she looks terrible. So yeah, she was in fact doing the drugs.
Wow.
Yeah, she now looks like she was doing, on methamphetamines and just looks real bad. And, it looks like, that could be a situation that's going to fall apart any minute now, right?
Right.
Let's talk about Rolling Loud. That happened recently. A lot of people went to jail. A lot of dumb shit happened. Have you ever been to a festival before?
I don't think so.
I've
been to a concert, but I don't think I've been to a festival.
Well, the concert, did you go to like an amphitheater or you went to like an arena? Was there a lawn section at the concert?
Yeah.
Okay, so a festival is just the lawn section.
Okay.
From the front, as soon as the stage out, it's just the lawn section. So there's no seats. People are just kind of milling around. Mm-hmm. And, the bigger the artists are, you're getting into 50, 75, 125,000 people there at one time. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. It's a lot of energies too, but it's a lot of physical stress on your body, right? So there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with the territories that they go to. They do things you're not supposed to do. They also engage in activities you're not supposed to engage in, and they just leave themselves exposed and vulnerable. And so they collide and clash. So one of the people who went to jail was Kodak Black, though. He wasn't engaged in any illegal activity at that moment, but he had, falsified some documents, which isn't something that, it's something that's frowned upon, even if you're not a convicted felon. So at one point I had high hopes that Kodak Black, I've even said on this podcast, like, he was going to get home and he was never going to go back to jail. He, had turned over. I had felt like some awakening had occurred in him, even though he was a young man still and still is. So it's disappointing to see him still kind of be in and out of that system, even though I already knew that was the only life he knew. So how else would he behave? Especially he has all this money and there's nobody to tell him what to do, right? So, who else went to jail? NBA YoungBoy, he was involved in somebody from his entourage was involved in a shooting in Miami. One person died in the crossfire. And that's one of my things about going to festivals now. Like, when I go to places and there's a lot of people, it's like, you
got to be on guard at all times.
Right. And it's like, how am I on guard? Yeah, I can be on guard and not piss you off, but I can't be on guard and control what, these two people do.
Right,
and I'm stuck in the middle. It's just, it's rough. And, I don't enjoy festivals like I used to. Fat Boy SSE. You know who that is, right? He's like that Instagram guy. He's fat. One day, like, you know, we're going to hang out. I'm not going to say anything though. I'm just going to watch like what you actually do. Like I want to know, I want a 24-hour update of like what No Anique is doing. And, you know, the sources that she's going to like for information, like, you know, who are these people that, you know, you're familiar with? Like, I'd love to kind of like, you know what's going on over there. Maybe one day when like things settle down around the house, right?
Right.
So, so Fat Boy SSE, he went to jail. He had a little bit of weed on him, nothing crazy. So, you know, he was in, he was out, you know, he'll be good. Mm-hmm. Wendy Williams' son, this was a story that I was supposed to read up on, but I didn't. So I'm going to just piece together what I think happened based off of what happened. Mm-hmm. And so I did see that there was an altercation. You know, I don't know if you know who Wendy Williams is, right?
Yes, I do.
All right. So Wendy Williams is going through a tough time right now.
Yes, she's going through a divorce.
Right. Oh, well, are they going through a divorce?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know. I thought they were working it out. Well, whatever the case may be, you know, her husband, her, you know, partner, or, you know, her, whatever. Mm-hmm. He's not very well liked right now. Mm-hmm. And so him and Wendy Williams' son got into an altercation. Now, as far as I knew, this is, you know, a father and son. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with that. You know, the son was frustrated, probably getting, you know, told some things at school about how, you know, his dad is acting or how his family's playing out. I'm going to actually give him kudos for not, you know, for going straight to the source. Mm-hmm. You know, not, you know, lashing out on some girl he talking to, right, for not, you know, falling out with his homies. Like, bro was like, you know what? It's that time. Right. You know, it's that moment in every son's life and father's life where it's like, okay, here we go. You know, we about to see, you know, which one of us has the bigger dick, you know, has the stronger back, you know, right now. Like, I'm ready to challenge you. So, and that's an interesting thing to even have happen because your dad has to be around for that to happen. So, that was the more interesting thing to me. Not that, you know, they fought and somebody went to jail, but it was just like, okay, you know, it was good to see that exchange happening. Right. You know, even though it is toxic. Right. But it's one of those things like, you know, their relationship, especially because, you know, he obviously felt like he was defending his mother. And I'm saying obviously, but I have no clue what happened. It's just like, okay, here we go, you know. Boom. And I think he's like college age, whatever. So he spent some time in jail. And finally, we have Archangel. He's a Latin pop star, right? So, and this story was funny to me because he was arrested for domestic abuse. So he hit his girlfriend. And they were at a hotel. And, you know, she called the police because, you know, he was getting, you know, touchy-feely. And so he had mentioned that he did, you know, hit her, but he kind of played it off. It wasn't until the police went back and, like, viewed the footage, they were like, okay, you kind of, like, kicked the shit out of her. Like, you know, with a side kick that, like, you know, sent her flying. Like, you know, that was, and then, you know, he was like, oh, that's just how we play. And I was just like, dog, nobody plays like that. Nobody plays with their feet off the ground. Right. Except Draymond Green. Right. You know, but everybody, which reminds me, actually, and you were supposed to remind me, but I just reminded myself. There's a video of Arnold Schwarzenegger being drop kicked. Have you seen that? And it only falls in the scope of what we're talking about because, you know, he decided not to press charges. So quickly, I'll go over this, but he was in Africa. He was doing this thing. He's been Arnold. Mind you, the guy's 71 years old. A fan attempted to get his, you know, his attention. And, you know, he was just kind of distracted. He was just like, you know, no, he wasn't distracted. He was doing something else. And so security stopped him. The guy kind of like backs up, gets a running start, and like literally, like, have you ever seen somebody try to drop kick? Right. Literally, his whole body was horizontal, like this table at one point. Like, you know, there's never a point in a fight where like both your feet should be dangling in the air. Like, you know, for you to even think like, yo, I'm finna drop kick this nigga, you got to be some type of like, you know, super special. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain moves in the fight that you just can't get off. And first of all, you a bitch anyway to try to drop kick him in the back. Right. And this nigga was acting like, oh, was that, you know, it felt like somebody had bumped me. He thought it was part of the crowd. You know, this nigga's so fucking rock solid. He's just like, oh, that was nothing to me. So what would you say is like the weirdest maneuver you've seen somebody try to get off in a fight?
I don't even know. I've seen some people do some crazy ass shit.
Have you ever seen somebody do an uppercut?
Try to, yeah.
Right, of course try to, because that's not gonna land. It's not landing. I'm not letting you. Have you ever seen somebody do a roundhouse?
Try to.
I've seen that as well. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen somebody, like, you know, and for people who don't know what a roundhouse is, that's like a leg, it's like a sweeping leg maneuver that knocks a person that's flying through the air. Like if a person tried to drop kick you, that's a good time to roundhouse. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in the middle of a fight, as soon as that one foot comes off the leg to kick somebody,
I'm going to catch it and you're going to fall.
And you're going to fall. And now you're on the ground and you're getting your ass beat.
Exactly.
Oh, man. So I do have a 2 truths and a con, but I feel like this episode has gone on long enough for me rambling, right? So I'll save it for next week. And in the interest of time, why don't you tell everybody where they can stalk your life on the internet?
Instagram at Noanik, Noinek, Snapchat Zay_Billion, ZE_BYLLION.
All right, and if you're rocking with this episode of the Verdict Podcast, make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podcorn, wherever you like to enjoy your podcast. Make sure you subscribe and you give us a review so other people can see that you're rocking with us, right? You can also stalk my life on the internet, on Instagram and Twitter at House of Splash. You can go to my website, thehouseofsplash.com, see all the updates on the site to see Take 2. Watch all the episodes from all the shows that I do and stay up to date on everything that I'm doing, all right? So other than that, we out of here.